Get up, and there's certainly been a lot of noise about the Lakers' chaos, most recently hearing from Magic Johnson, of course, loud and clear on First Take about what went wrong. Then we heard Rob Pelinka's response. Someone who's been quiet in all of this is LeBron James. But Brian Windhorst is now speculating that behind the scenes, LeBron is doing plenty of talking.
From what I understand, he has already begun the recruiting process. I've heard he has had contact with Kawhi Leonard. I've heard he's had contact with Jimmy Butler. There's no tampering enforcement by players. And while Magic Johnson, the guy who got in trouble for tampering before, is no longer there, LeBron is tamperer-in-chief of the Lakers right now. The thing about it is I don't know if, texts and calls and maybe a dinner with LeBron is enough for the Lakers to overcome their hurdles that they're going to have. And so, to be honest with you guys, I think the Lakers really have to look at the trade market. How willing would they be to move that number 4 pick? I really don't think they can honestly think that they're going to get Kawhi, Kyrie, or Kevin Durant, even if they have LeBron as their lead recruiter.
So that's Windy again on PTI, and it's important to point out he's not reporting that these are the things that are happening, but this is what he's hearing and he's speculating. And it's all reasonable to assume that LeBron is talking to these guys. What do you think are the chances that despite all of the mess that seems to be going on above him in the organization, that LeBron can talk one of these preeminent players in the NBA into coming to play with him in LA?
30% chance, because you got to remember, LeBron is also going into his 17th season. So if you're one of those guys, and you're in a unique spot because all of the top guys have already won a championship. So you don't have to necessarily run to play with the Lakers and play with LeBron James in order to try to secure that. And you're trying to look for somebody that you could probably run with for a few years as opposed to a couple of years because LeBron, as I mentioned, is going into a 17th.
What do you think?
You make a great point, Jalen, as far as his 17th year. So that means he's willing to go ahead and pass the torch for the most part as far as someone being able to do things on the floor on the offensive side. But you know what? It's not about, you hear about guys talking with one another. They played together. He has relationships with these guys. They played in USA teams. So it's not a matter of, oh, my goodness, he sought them out that way. They have relationships.
Well, Jalen, you weren't here a couple of days ago, but I got into a huge argument, and it continues with Tom Thibodeau, and I continue to believe I'm right. The perfect player to pair with LeBron, and to your point, Brucey, it's not someone he played with on Team USA. It's someone he played with in Cleveland, is Kyrie. Kyrie Irving found out the grass is not always greener when you have your own team in Boston. Look how badly that went. Their games fit together perfectly. I believe that is the perfect player to go play with him. If they can find a way to make some kind of trade and get Kyrie to sign there, I think the Lakers could be back like that.
I agree. And it's not all doom and gloom in Los Angeles. I remember when Magic went on First Take and then the fallout from that. He didn't do them any favors. However, they have some great young assets. They still have LeBron James. As you mentioned, they can still acquire a max player. I think that guy can be a guy like Kyrie Irving because you got to look at who they got to beat. You got to beat the Golden State Warriors. They have Steph Curry. You got to beat Portland. They have Dame Lillard. He's a guy that can actually compete against those guys and play at their level.
Look, you don't have to ask the question, can LeBron James and Kyrie Irving win a championship playing together? Because we've already seen the answer. The answer is yes. And if Golden State breaks up, essentially, if Kevin Durant winds up leaving the Warriors, then I think I would give that team with the Lakers, depending on what they did around him, a real shot.
But if you're Kyrie, you're already asked to leave from playing with LeBron. You go to Boston, it seems like a turnkey situation that should work. It does not work.
Right.
It kind of looks like you go back crawling to LeBron.
Okay. Well, not crawling. It's the whole deal of sometimes we learn our mistakes of what we've done. And he did it earlier this year. You remember the whole apology to LeBron?
Sometimes, one man's crawling back is another man's honest reflection on the circumstance.
Correct.
And assess yourself, assess the circumstances, and say, you know what? Maybe I'm better suited being a great player with another great player to take some of that heat and burden of leadership and all of that off of me. I think that would be a very legitimate way for Kyrie to look at it.
But all of these circumstances are unique because the Nets and the Clippers both have 2 max spots, but they're considered the secondary teams in their own market.
Right.
You have all of these max caliber players who are free agents that have already won championships. You got the reigning back-to-back finals MVP who may lead the best team in basketball. So we have not seen anything like this.
Kyrie may be deciding, and I don't know this, he may be deciding between teaming up with KD and the Knicks, which has been long rumored, or LeBron and the Lakers. I'm not sure which of those circumstances.
I'm not afraid of the moment. I enjoy it. And, this was what I work out for in the summer. So you just got to go out and shoot the ball, I guess. That's my mindset, try to get to a spot, help my team win the game.
The game he played tonight, 35, 9, and 7, it was a pretty good game. It was a pretty good game on the big stage, on the road. Superstar.
Game 5 of that Celtics series, you saw the Celtics kind of fold. You know, you guys got to lead.
No, we're not going to fold.
How do you know?
We're not going to fold, man. Come on, man. We best team in the league, man. We're not going to fold. We're going to go and give everything we got. We're not going to go there and even they set a great tone and they come out and hit us in the mouth first. We can't fold. You know, we're going to come back to Milwaukee being pissed. Like, you cannot fold. You got to go out there and give everything you got. If we lose, we lose. Okay, cool. But we're not going to fold as a team, and that's not what we do.
Bucks led by 3 entering the fourth quarter. Marked the first time all season they lost a home game, entering the fourth with the lead. They've lost 3 straight for the first time this season, as this series has taken a complete turn after Milwaukee won the first 2 at home. Kawhi Leonard, brilliant. 35 points, created 27 points via his 9 assists. The 62 points he was responsible for, the most in any game of his career. 27 points created, also a career high as the offense flowed through him all night. Raptors connected on 18 threes, most in a playoff game in team history. Van Vliet with the 7, most he's made in a game in his NBA and college career. So now, 5 games in the books, and both teams have scored exactly 546 points. Raptors will have a chance to close out the series on Saturday, but don't count out the Bucks just yet. 4 of the last 5 1 seeds to trail 3-2 in the series came back to win the series, including each of the last 2.
Michael Wilbon joins us. Michael, what did you think going into this game that was either reinforced or that you'd like to rethink now?
Well, Neil, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a back pat on this one. After watching games 3 and 4, it just became evident that while Giannis Antetokounmpo is he's a great player, he's still a work in progress. I mean, there's some limitations that Toronto figured out probably sometime early in game 3. And when they apply those double teams with big bodies, they can wall him off. And Antetokounmpo is not yet a complete player. He doesn't have a shot he can go to. And so I'd seen that in games 3 and 4, and that was in effect here again tonight. At one point, Nick Nurse called timeout and reminded his team, we double. They reduced Giannis, if you can say this, they reduced him to being a very, very, very good player, not a great one. And at that point, Toronto has an advantage.
All right, you're great with the pen. If you're writing a headline in Milwaukee, what are you writing?
In Milwaukee, I think it's what happened. I mean, what happened to that 2-0 lead? I mean, they had that great game 2 where the Bucks looked nuclear. It looked like they were going to take Toronto right out of this series with their game 2 performance. And then it all changed. Toronto became a different team in game 3. And by the way, Neil, remember, they needed 2 overtimes to win that game. And you just wonder, I mean, 1 point, 1 free throw, 1 play goes the other way, and they're down 3-0, but they weren't.
You're in Toronto. What are you writing?
You know what? I know it's local, kind of, but isn't it, I wanted to go with old Canada, but it should probably be something that deals with Kawhi. Like, you really want to go to L.A.? You really want to leave this? I mean, neither of those 2 L.A. teams, and the Clippers are a lot closer, obviously, with a 48-win team and cap space. They're a lot closer to being something, to being what Toronto is. But Toronto's there. And I say the headline in Toronto's got to deal with something with Kawhi Leonard because he's the best player. Neil, he's the best player in this series. Limping around on one leg, he's the best player in this series. They're going to have to really have some effort by Milwaukee on the road in Toronto in Game 6 to knock Toronto out of this thing and get them back here for a Game 7. Kawhi Leonard right now, the force seems to be with him, even if he's struggling on knees and quads and all these ailments he's got going on. In the box score and in the final analysis, he doesn't seem to be struggling very much at all.
Michael Wilbon, our show's better when you're on it.
Thanks, Neil.
By Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A., last week it's 2-0, and you and I agreed it was a wrap. Since then, Milwaukee has suffered its first 3-game losing streak, and I feel like I got popped in my jaw, and it's like a standing 8 count. I can't imagine what I'm seeing. What's changed in your opinion?
Well, first of all, we all look like fools right now. You ain't alone, SVP. That's the reality of the situation. But there's no shame in being made to look like a fool by Kawhi Leonard, because that has been the difference in this series. They were down 0-2. What happens? Nick Nurse makes the adjustments of putting Kawhi Leonard on the Greek Freak. You know what the Greek Freak strength is. He's got the ball in his hands, and he's coming at you full steam ahead. From the moment he gets past half court, he's looking to get into the lane, and you had someone like Kawhi Leonard able to stymie his path to the paint as much as you possibly can. And of course, he had help. As a result, the Greek Freak, the dominant player inside, has been virtually non-existent. The Greek Freak, the playmaker, can't do but so much to create open shots for a bunch of guys that can shoot when standing still and uncontested. But when contested and forced to put the ball on the floor, they ain't the same. And then you've got Kawhi Leonard on the offensive end dropping 15 to 35 in the fourth quarter. You got Kawhi Leonard defending. You got Fred VanVleet coming off the bench and dropping 7 3-pointers. This is what the Toronto Raptors did. Their bench showed up. Milwaukee's bench hasn't shown up, particularly in the last 2 games. That's why Toronto is up 3-2, and that's why the Milwaukee Bucks are on the brink of elimination, going back to Canada in Drake's house with him waiting. It's a bad, bad time for the Milwaukee Bucks right now.
It is that. And look, Toronto historically has been one thing, right? Closeout game at home, opportunities to seal the deal, but they've never had Kawhi Leonard. So for me, whatever Toronto's history was in an inability to close is null and void, because now they have Kawhi. And Charles said on TNT, and I agree, Toronto has to look at Game 6 like Game 7, because if they don't win there, the Bucks at home in Game 7 might be too much. What's your sense of what happens in Game 6?
Well, I agree. Well, I agree with you there, but I would tell you the reason why they've had difficulty doing those things in the past is because they kept running into LeBron James. That was their kryptonite. Sure. He's gone, plus Kawhi Leonard is there. So definitely that assists them. But you certainly have to approach it as if it's a Game 7. You don't want Milwaukee to rebuild momentum by stealing Game 6 on your home turf and you having to come back to the States on their home turf to deal with them in a Game 7. That's just not going to bode well. But right now, you've got to give Toronto the edge. The momentum is in their favor. Their bench is playing very, very well. Whether it's Powell, whether it's VanVleet, or anybody else, these guys have shown up and they've responded to the challenge. And they have a superstar, not a star, a superstar in Kawhi Leonard. He is simply something special, man. He's on one leg practically. Dropped 15 of his 35 in the fourth quarter. They couldn't do anything with him. They have no answer for him. And I don't see how they're going to get one within the next 48 hours, to be quite honest with you.
I'm done making predictions, man. The last time you and I spoke about this, I was incorrect. I'm just going to watch Game 6 and see where it takes us, and we'll be watching you tomorrow morning. Stephen A. Smith, appreciate you always, my man.
I'm right with you. I ain't making any prediction. I've been wrong too much thus far in this series. I'm saying I'm neutral.
Like Switzerland. That's you. Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Switzerland, my man.